It's all different layers and levels. They all come on top of each other. You can't hold it all together, but you know, once you know they're there, once you've covered them, when you're talking to someone, as soon as something comes up that's relevant to it, boom, you realize, oh, that's there, and you can go back and check it and work it in. This is what you do. You have this information beforehand, and then this is your tools to work with when you're in a session. So when you're in a session, something comes up, you're not dumbfounded or gobstruck or anything. You're just suddenly just, okay, it must be there, or where do I go? If this isn't happening where I thought, where is it, why? And you got these different layers to look at to keep backing you up. And if you have this done in advance and you studied in advance, it's a smooth sailing usually for a consultation. If sometimes you can have a take on somebody and say, you got it, oh, it's exactly like this, and you're exactly opposite. He's done exactly the opposite, or the person's done exactly the opposite of what you expected. That's easy. It's easy to make that opposite mistake. Say, oh, okay, if that's so, then you have to rethink everything in an opposite way to see the repercussions. But you can do that fairly quickly if you have these states all calculated. So that means, oh, okay, this happened here. You're filling in the gaps with real experience from the character. Like when you're doing a chart, you're doing a character. You build up a caricature of someone. Then you're adding things happen to that character, and you're watching that caricature, and you're imagining how this character is dealing with, so he's going to deal with this. It's not who the person is. It's a caricature. It's somewhat resembling him, but it's not exactly. But it's close enough that the things you're seeing happen to the character will be happening. The same timings will be happening to the real person. The person can see you're relating to the character. Oh, but I can see how that relates to me. You know, so there's this gap between your perception and what the person can hear, what the person's ready for that's coming to see you. They haven't done all the work with astrology. They're not going to want to know all this technique. But it's good if you have it set up, because you can show people and they're saying, wow, they look at it, and then you're pointing at the points and the dates are there. And like, it's not a hard sell. People start listening, oh, what that mean? What would that mean? And you're not having to prove things that much. You're just going and elaborating things that have happened or that are happening. So his new moon, he had the new moon 1978. So he's born 69, 9 years old, just before Saturn his ascendant. The new one happened, I have no idea. It could be something with father or mother probably, or moving, or some change, or brothers, or something coming in, or a move or something, but something happened there, and it triggered off an identity complex the following year. Because I'm remembering that when we did the Saturn cycle, his Saturn, about 10, was coming down towards the ascendant. 10, 11 was coming to the ascendant. So this is at 8. So you see the sequence of events coming through it. Then there was the full moon, and I have the full moon dates on the opposite side. I do that because it gets too cluttered. You can write them all on the same side, but I think it gets too cluttered. It's oh, there's the full moon. Okay, look at the other side. 1992, December, he had the full moon from the 10th, 11th house to the 5th house. Now, if you have a bio and you have 5 or 10 things filling in your time, and you have the time frame set up from Saturn, you can walk in and say, oh, this means this full moon built up around this issue, or his all awareness happened there. Once you have a full moon, it's 30 years before you're going to get another full moon of the awareness of both sides of your charts in the past and the future, and you're looking at things, you get a certain deja vu thing happening. And the same with the new moons, they happen every 30 years. So it's 2008, he got the new moon. That's fairly recent. So that was a really deep impression of who he was, what he wanted to do. And that was, again, still in his 11th house, but the sun and moon were both there in Leo. And by this time, yeah, so the kids are born and going along. So his personal impression, that new moon would have been deep. New moon's a deep seed, like Saturn on the IC. It's just something deep impressions that's affecting you, but you don't necessarily can't explain, but you feel you've changed, you've shifted your priorities. And then that's the seed beginning point. It doesn't come, the next new moon isn't until 2037, and it's right on the ascendant. But after this new moon, the next 3 are the 3 eclipses. So if you're on your spiritual path, these are gongs going off, that affirmations on your spiritual path. If you're not on your spiritual path, these are challenges of things that happen in the world that make you become more aware of your inner path, whether it's kicking or screaming, however. But the full moon what is coming up. The first of these, the full moon, 2022 April. We were talking about that already. The full moon coming in there. We saw that on the. So he's in the gibbous phase coming up to the full moon. Those moon phases are really useful for your progressed sun moon. They tell you the phase of the moon you're at and where you're going to and where you're into. They're really useful. They really represent your inner states, taking your sun and moon together. So you want to keep in touch with that, but then it shifts in 2022. Then after 2022, after the full moon, everything's building up. Then in the family, everything's been building up. What's next? So you could say that it's a potential enlightenment or awareness of situations, but it's an inner thing for him. Then his progress sun's in the 12th house. It keeps moving along until he gets to 2037. Well, that's 17 years from now, 18 years from now. And that's the next really big beginning start of his life. So he may be the astrologer, he may work on it, but if he's going to write the special book or have the special point or have a special point of influence, it's going to come at that point. And maybe he gets the special book, maybe he gets a mystical initiation, maybe something comes in, maybe he changes his name. Things can happen really strongly over those times because not only is that new moon eclipse there, it's going to be on his ascendant. I don't know what it is. We're looking ahead, we're seeing imponderable forces with the progressions. They're things that are inner agendas that work, and we usually watch, oh, that's how that happened. Oh, that played out like this, or this is playing out like this. We're usually seeing it like we're looking at the back of a boat as it's happening. It's hard to project forward with the progressions. You got your set pattern with the transits, that's solid. But this is the inner you going on, and you're growing through, and you're going this way in these inner attitudes while the transits are going on. It's not a rational thing. It ends up, you're doing the rational work. You're seeing these times. There's an intuitive thing that happens between the lines in here. This is filling in the gaps of the Saturn. When you have someone's story, you're working with a family, or you're deeply involved, these things blossom. But even for your own chart, if you're 45, your chance of understanding your own progressions or how much you're going to absorb is minimal. Haven't lived long enough to watch long to watch them, but you can look by, you can probably see some of the things that happen. Oh, look at that. You can begin to tune into them. But it's when you get past 60 and you're getting towards the last part of your life, you really start seeing how you evolve through your lifetime. And you see the progressions. But we work with them anyways. We watch these new moons and full moons. We watch when the moon goes across the angles. We watch when the moon comes back and conjuncts itself, the lunar return, the progressive lunar return. So these are all factors. Now, as it's going along, it's making all the other aspects that, like, there's all kinds of things going on. You can go in and find so much more information at any time with the progressive moon. But really, I want to get in my mind, I got the Saturn graph, and I want to have a sense of where I am in the moon phases. We look up the gibbous moon phase, it's telling us it. It's telling us we're just before the full moon. There's the full moon. We look up, it's an eclipse. Okay, just before the full moon eclipse. And everything's building up to see how far you get, and then there's going to be a shift. At that point, what you're seeing, there'll be an inner theme inside of it, there'll be an inner understanding within it, and that's coming up in the future. So that's what I want to see. I want to get this sense of where you are in the moon-sun progressions as they're going around your chart. These are all above the horizon, things. It becomes more personal issues when the sun goes below the horizon. In 2037. Okay, so having these dates there allows me to do this, allows me to ignore the ones that aren't relevant for now, but I can come in at any time in life and come in and go through this. And like, if you had a kid that was autistic or an adult that has certain special skills and certain vulnerabilities, these time playouts, they play out very significantly. They play out for all of us significantly. So even if we're not functional out in the world and we're in a coma or something like this, the progressions are still going on. The transits are going on, you're not tapping them, but the progressions and the evolution of the soul is still going on, even in a seemingly a comatose body. I'm not saying he's comatose, I'm expanding. It's nothing like he has Neptune factors, but I wouldn't say. But we're just working with the chart and getting used to doing this. We're going to do this with every chart. These are just examples of how to work with a chart. So instead of winging it with everything, I'm trying to get to cut out this, look at this, get your anchors on these things. You can expand any of these things and get more information. It's a question of cutting down what's the most relevant, how much minimum do you need to know to be right on with a person or close enough to communicate with a person. Okay, so no, that's okay. Now I got to show you something. What's this? This is just a printout. You can get a printout with the progressions and the transits around it. I don't use it, too much information. I really don't use it. So that was from WinStar. But I want to go, I got to show you some other things now. So this is how we got the information we have. And we have the information that we want to keep this about the right size. Okay. It's over a bit there. And now I want to, okay, if you're just working computer and don't have time to draw all these things out, you're going to run off three things. You're going to run off this is in Matrix. This is one of the reports in the search options. So I had the date set, and it shows up. The next thing coming up is the Saturn opposition to the Sun, January 18, 2019. But then it just gives one date. There's 2 or 3 dates, but no, you get to see what you're working with here. At this point, it's just general. It alerts you, okay, that's coming up. Then it goes through explaining a bit about the quarters of Saturn going around. And then it gives you your Saturn graph. It does the Saturn transits to every planet, Saturn to Saturn, Saturn to the Sun, to the Moon, to Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and then on the outside to the midheaven, to the ascendant. So really, I like to work without all this extra information. I like to see the Saturn to Saturn, Saturn to the Sun, you get the sign in the house it's in, and the Saturn to the angles. It's enough. I mean, you can work with this, you can fill in all the other information. You see other information, it gives you a little bit more to talk about, but it's almost too much. So we're going to go along 1994. This does it for 90 years. It says it's a 30-year cycle when you do it, but so here we are, 2010, and each year is a line, 2018, 2019. And here we can see the Saturn opposed the Sun right there between the beginning of 2019. And you can see there's not more Saturn problems for a number of years. It comes up in yeah, so, and it's already hit the midheaven, hit the square, it conjuncted the IC here, opposed to midheaven, a couple of years ago. So you can see these couple of things. You can see other things. Sometimes all kinds of other things you can get pulled into it, but I don't want you to get that complicated. I want to keep it to Saturn to the angles, Saturn to the Sun, Saturn to itself. Those are the 3 anchors of Saturn. Saturn to itself is your own age factors, your 7-year age factors. And the Saturn to the Sun is your defining your goals or being as far away as you can be from them. And then the outer planets are the tests to come in, but the Saturn to the angles give you the phases that you're developing through and the main adjustments. And those are the pieces you need to really have a good sense of Saturn. Everything else is an add-on to these basic factors. Okay, so this is one thing you do. You run it to print out of the transits. Okay, so we get that. I like to work with the 7-year graph. Once we got the graph, you could use that to make the graph, but I like to print this with more exact information. So anyways, then we're going to do, there's then there's a report that does your progressions for 30 years. It's really for 90 years. It says 30, but it does 90 years. Remember, as Saturn goes around for one chart in 30 years, as the progressed moon goes around once in 30 years, as the progressed sun goes through a sign once in 30 years, you have all these parallels of patterns that tend to play out and different versions of them. So you're getting a time sense out of this. So this is a progressed printout from the WinStar.